Thank you guys for joining us. It's another episode of Never a Dull Moment.
And today we're talking about how to raise owner-minded kids in an entitled world. This is a big topic. I'm excited about this
I feel like
topic.
it takes mastery
It takes messing it up.
and ingenuity.
Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to get right into it today.
Get dirty.
Oh my gosh. We're not going there. Okay, so my first question is, what does it mean to raise owner-minded kids? I think we can talk about how kids are entitled and how the world is entitled, and we love instant gratification, and we talk all about those things a lot. I love Simon Sinek. I love that he talks about the problem a lot. There's a lot of people who talk about the problem and they outline what's happening in our world. We can find a lot of information about that. But I want to dive into, what does it actually mean to raise owner-minded kids?
Don't tell me what to do. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I think focusing on for this episode, I spend my life in sessions, oh sweet Jesus. But for this episode, I want to talk about the solution of what does it mean and how can we raise owner-minded children. It's super challenging. I think we use this a lot, but what does it actually mean? So I'd love to hear that from you, and then I'm happy to share. But what would you say it means to our family, and how can we even begin to start to do that?
Well, I think, I don't study this, so it's not like I have the answers. So I'm not claiming to be a professional in this arena by any means. Like, we are learning as we grow as well.
Yeah. These are the answers. These are our answers.
Anything that we talk about is never going to be like the infinite thing. These are just the things that we go through and we've done and we've dealt with. Some of the things work for us. Some of the things didn't work for us. So this is just our story. Mm-hmm. And I think that, it's like you go through stuff in life potentially to learn lessons, so that way you can help people to not have to go through those lessons alone in the future. And that's why we're doing a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think as far as, in my opinion, the way we're raising owner-minded children into owner-minded young adults, into owner-minded civilians and potentially spouses and parents, is we give them, I think the first and foremost, most important thing that I think is we give them a voice. We give them an option. They're living their life kind of on our terms, but at the same time, we ask them what they want, so that way they feel seen and heard. We don't want them, if we go through the education system mindset, the thing that we don't like is that, they ring a bell. They're training our children to become workers, and we're training them to be warriors, right? We want them to be leaders. We want them to stand in the front and make choices. They can't make choices if we don't let them think. In order to think, you have to risk being offensive. I think Jordan Peterson said that. I love that quote. I have it taped in my truck, and it doesn't mean you have to.
What is the quote?
In order to think, you have to risk being offensive.
Ooh.
But in a world where we live now, you can't even use your own voice without being bombarded. I'm not saying you should use your voice for hate.
No.
You shouldn't be out there telling people they look like crap or they do this or that. But in order to have a civilized conversation, even with your young children, I think you have to ask them adult questions. What, not just what do you want to be when you grow up, but what impact, what problem, like Elon Musk became a billionaire because he solved a lot of problems, right?
Yeah. You want to make money, you solve problems.
Yeah, he wasn't looking for a problem. He was looking for a problem to solve.
Yeah.
He was, so it depends on what you're looking for. But with our kids, we're always asking them, what impact do you want to make? What do you want to do when you grow up? Oh yeah? Why do you want to do that? What is that going to create for you? What kind of purpose does that bring you? We ask them questions rather that are not just surface level. Yeah. And I think we allow them to, and so most of the time kids say, well, I don't know. I want to be an astronaut, or, our boys, every boy wants to be a firefighter, or they want to fly jets and stuff, which is great. I think what we do is to create ownership minded kids too, is we don't shoot that idea down, because there's no such thing as a bad idea.
No.
Like, our kids want to be, you want to be a fighter pilot? You damn well could be a fighter pilot. You want to go to the moon? You for sure could go to the moon. You want to be the president? Why not? Like, you want to own a taco shop? Like, okay. Like, anything you do, it's up to them, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're raising them only to be free thinkers. And then by the time they reach adulthood, like our daughter, they get to go out and make decisions. And not saying because they free think and they're not just going the way of the world, there's going to be more tension. But I feel like if you think of it in a sense of like, let's say, what are those things called? A slingshot. Like, the further you pull back, the more tension you create, the further it's going to go.
Yeah.
So the more we pull on our kids and stretch their thinking, the further it's going to take them in their lives, I think.
So really what you're saying is being owner-minded is having the power to contemplate and having the power to think for yourself and then take action on it. I think that is one of the defining factors, because this might not be the popular opinion, but I'm going to say it. The woke movement is people being awake, or they're woke, but they're not awake. Right. I think that is.
Sure. I don't really know what that means at all.
Like, your people who are woke, they see to an extent, but they're not fully awake. Like, to be fully awakened is to take action, or to take ownership is not just to know what you want, but it's to go own it. We tell our kids that all the time. We say, okay, own it. Once they figure out what they want. And it's funny, you were saying, what do you want to be? But that's actually something we've pushed on, is let's understand. I think being owner minded is understanding who you are and what you're capable of, and then taking the action to go get it and taking responsibility in the things you want, versus just waiting for someone to hand it to you. Like, no one's coming for you. No one's here to help you. No one owes you anything. And I think that's a part of what we've taught our kids, is we don't owe you anything. And I think as a child, I remember feeling that, like, you're my parents, you should provide for me. Like, do you want a gold star? And I think there is some of that. But also, once you get to a certain point, like, bare minimum, we have to provide. That does not mean you need a cell phone. That does not mean you need all of these luxuries. And just because your parents have money doesn't mean you have money, and you don't just get access to everything. And I think in teaching your kids to be owner minded, it's actually valuing what you have and not blaming, but taking responsibility for what you want and going after it, not waiting for someone to come and hand it to you on a silver platter. And I think in our world today, so many people want to just wait for it. And then they get mad because they're not given those things, right? Like, we've seen so many of our daughter's friends blame their parents because they didn't get the thing. Or even my brother, when we first met, I'll never forget that Christmas.
Hey, careful.
I don't care.
I'm just kidding.
When we first met, my brother Jesse came to Christmas at my parents' house for the first time, and my brother was what, 7, 8?
He was 10 or 12.
Oh, okay. He was a little bit older. He was mad. You tell the story. I don't remember exactly.
So I was blown away because, and it's really hard to, like, looking back, like, from far away, like, if you pull yourself away from the situation, like, your parents really didn't. Your mom probably grew up a lot better than your dad did, but your dad grew up with no money. So to him, love looked like providing the world to his children. So you guys went on trips. You got everything you ever wanted. You got cell phones. You got cars. You got everything. He felt like that was a waste. So I never had any of that, right? Like, the first car I was given, my dad, who was never around, one thing he did give me was a car, but then I had to put like $3,000 into it, getting it running. Anyway, the entitled mindset I witnessed, like, you know, it's crazy because growing up the way I did, I was thankful to have a stupid remote control car for Christmas. And here I go. The first Christmas I spend with you and your family. I witnessed your brother opening all these gifts, and he probably had like $3,000 worth of presents. And when he opened this thing, he noticed he only had $120 cash or something, and he was pissed off, like throwing a fit, like he didn't want any of the other stuff. And it's just like I was blown away. Like, wow. I mean, he had more money given to him in gifts for Christmas than my mom probably made in 3 months.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, like I would have got the crap beat out of me if I would have even. And see, my dad wasn't around, so I would have had, my uncles would have been there, and there would have been at least 3 people beating the hell out of me, like for disrespecting my mother that way.
Yeah, but to that point, my family is very entitled. And even it starts, I think you said this when we were talking about doing this episode. You said it starts being owner minded, or teaching our kids to be owner minded actually starts with us being owner minded. And seeing that example, which is interesting because in a way, my dad's a business owner, again, extremely successful. But we would hear him say things like, I work hard, I deserve this. Yes, you work hard, but that doesn't mean the world owes you anything. That doesn't mean your family is going to bend over. Like you might actually provide really well, but that doesn't mean you just like you can just expect respect. And I think in the owner mind, like we actually look at that and we're able to receive, but there's less expectation. I think the more owner minded that I get, the less expectations I have of the people around me, and the more responsibility that I take. And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators, is that even if we're in an argument, if I'm owner minded, I'm going to take ownership for my side versus expecting you to say sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And I actually think in a lot of ways, apologies. I've been thinking about this a lot. Apologies, like what does it look like to apologize as being owner minded, and not conforming, or not being a victim? Because if you're owner minded, you're not a victim, right? Victimhood.
So what would those
and
two different
ownership
sorries look like
happen.
then? What do you mean?
Well,
and like, how does that relate to showing our kids what owner minded looks like? Is that
my dad never apologized. When you think about people who are not owner minded, they don't apologize. Like, when's the last time you ever got an apology from your family?
Well, my mom apologizes all the time, but she apologizes in a victim way, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't be this or that." It's like, it's not from the heart. It's not like, "Hey, I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. Like, I'm really sorry that this is what you're doing, or this is the way you're feeling because of the way I reacted."
And I don't even know. Sometimes I think saying sorry is totally fine. We actually we model that really well with our family, with our kids. We apologize. I have apologized even when, I blew up a couple weeks ago at the boys, and I apologized. Was my anger justified? Yes, I had the right to be frustrated in that moment because they were not being respectful. But the way that I allowed that situation to affect me and I reacted to that situation, I was not proud of. So I think the difference is saying sorry, like, yeah, I'm sorry, like, or saying sorry to get something in exchange, right? I think a lot of times we just apologize because it's what's expected of us, or it's what's required to just get to like whatever the result that you're trying to get to, versus actually taking ownership, seeing what we did wrong, and then choosing to change. I think if you're going to apologize, you have to be ready to not do it again. Like to apologize is to actually repent. And that means turn 180. You have to do a 180. You have to turn from that and not do it again. You have to stop the pattern. And so I think a lot of times we apologize, but we're not actually ready to take ownership over that thing and stop doing what the habit or the thing that we're doing that like hurt the other person, and we just continue to do it. And I think that's true ownership, when we can take true responsibility and we can own who we are, what we want, where we messed up. And to that point, I think one of the greatest things you can do, or like people who are owner minded and take ownership, they are able to fail well.
Yeah, I think that falls
Failure
into,
is really important.
like what you're saying is like falls into the conversation we were having earlier, kind of about this podcast. It's like us taking ownership in front of each other, like us having healthy conflicts or conflicts in front of our kids, shows that it's healthy in marriage to have a disagreement and to see how we do that. So it's like, we take ownership over it, therefore we're planting seeds in our children that produce the fruit of like the things that are hard can be good.
Mm-hmm.
Like apologizing. They get to see how, dad was yelling at mom 10 minutes ago, and now he feels like a complete idiot for it. So he gets to go apologize. His kids get to witness how this all took place. I think that's one way that we show our kids an ownership mindset, is that we set the example, we plant the seeds of the fruit that we want to produce. Right.
Yeah.
And when we yell, like you said, you were yelling at the boys, you don't want to produce a fruit of anger out of them. So therefore you apologize, because you're like, they got to know that, hey, sometimes you say things that you don't mean, and you could feel sorry for them. It doesn't mean that you have to change the way you feel about it, but planting to see that you should be bold enough that when you make a mistake to go to the people that you love and be like, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that wasn't my best.
Yeah, that wasn't me showing up the way I would like to show up. This is not a reflection of how I want to be your mother or your father or your friend.
I think that's totally owner minded. And when we allow ourselves to make mistakes and take ownership of our mistakes, I think that is one of the greatest teaching moments that we can have for our kids, because it allows them to see and like have a model of that. And my parents would not ever apologize. That's still not something, but I think that that's something that we can really do to encourage our kids taking ownership and being owner minded, is creating a culture where people are allowed to fail and make mistakes, and then showing them how to take that ownership. So what are a couple other things that you feel like we've done really well, or that people can do to create owner minded kids versus entitled children?
Honestly, I think a big one is chores. Like they have to have a job. They have to pave their way to be able to have the things in life that they have. Like, okay, their parents may be in a certain position, but if you're just giving your kids something without them earning it, they're going to go out into the world and think that they could just go out into the world and they're going to earn it, and they're going to have a hard time. That's why I think, sometimes I think depression and anxiety, that's really not real. Like, it is, but it's not. I think it's a lot of those things we bring onto ourselves, and it could be from our upbringing. We're creating anxiety and depression in our lives because of the lack of our work ethic. Like, you don't give your kids a job to do in the house, pick up after themselves, make sure their bed's made, do their homework. Like our sons, one of them is the trash, the other one is the dishes. Sorry, I was trying to think of that word. Like the dishes. But if they don't do their chores, they don't do their job, they don't get paid. They don't get to have their hour of free time. They want to play video games or connect with their outside world with their cousins, or they want to go to the jumpy place or get ice cream or go to the movies or stuff like that. Like, all those things cost us something from us, and we can't just give it to them, or else they become entitled.
Well, and we don't pay our kids for basic chores. They can get paid for doing extra.
Yeah.
I think that's something that that's really worked for us, because so many times that we have seen where kids get paid for chores and then they are entitled. Like, You're no, you're not doing something for me. You live in this household. You're a member of this household. Therefore, you're going to contribute. And I would totally agree with what you're saying. I think having very clear understanding of what's expected and having the opportunity to show up and contribute in a positive way, make an impact, contribute to your household. Like as a mom and as a wife, I want to contribute. That's something that makes me feel good, right? Like when we get to show up and we get to contribute, that brings value to who we are. When we get to share that value with each other, with our household, that actually can, and it's proven to disarm and be able to overcome. And like, I'm not getting the right word, but it helps with anxiety and depression. What the only way to build confidence is for someone to go do the thing that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
You want to overcome anxiety and depression, give your kids a place to have purpose and to insert their value and contribute. And it's amazing when we allow our kids to actually face those fears. We allow our kids to overcome those internal battles and find value in themselves, build confidence. Those things just disappear. We've seen it in our own household, right? We've seen it within our own selves. And through the nonprofit and all the youth we've worked with, we've seen it there too. When kids have a place to feel like they're valuable, those things don't live, right? And I think that like nobody wants to talk about that. Everyone wants to like give the pill. And I'm not saying that those things are bad. And I'm not saying that, you gotta own that for your household. But if you want to overcome those things, you're going to give your kids a place to show up and not make it that you owe them something, right?
Yeah.
Our kids can choose to do extra work and then like clean their garage, things that are off of their list. And they know those boundaries of when it's supposed to be done in their chores. They know what's expected. They know how. And like our 10-year-old, or he's 11 now, our 11-year-old knows how to do laundry. He's really good at it. He knows how. And do they always do it? No. And there has to be, I think that's where it's like frustrating, or where I struggle is how much do you like remind them? What does that look like? I think you do a little bit better job of that.
Of what?
If they
What
don't
exactly?
do it, what does ownership look like? If your kids aren't doing their chores and they're not contributing to the household and they're not getting good grades and they're not taking ownership, what does constructive and forward movement look like to get them to take ownership? Like when they're refusing to, what does it look like to get them to?
You just remind them, like I said, it's their paycheck is the fun things they get
But
to
that's
do.
not ownership.
What do you mean?
If I have to be responsible for your chores, then that's not ownership. You're better at this because
Well, maybe it's something I do involuntarily.
you do. Because I'm kind of flighty and I get very wrapped up in like my world. And you're really good if the kids don't, like, I sit and I like nag them, right? I'm like, do your chores, blah, blah, blah. And I really try not to do that. And then you just don't say anything. And then when we go somewhere, they'll ask for a soda or ask for something that is extra. And you're like, no, you don't get that today. You didn't do your stuff. Your mom had to ask you more than once. And instead of nagging them in the moment, you just kind of let it happen. And then when they want something, you're like, nope, you didn't do this. I forget. So I think part of it is letting life's lessons be their biggest teacher. You do that really well.
Yeah.
Even with like putting on a coat, so many times I'm like, get your coat. You're like, if they're cold, they're only going to do that once. What does George Lopez say?
I don't know.
You always say that joke.
Which one?
Like where they get up on the counter and the like Mexican moms like.
That's what my grandma used to do. That, so she'd be like, go ahead, let him climb up so that way he could fall all the way down. Like, and my grandma used to do that too. Like, go ahead, get up there, learn your lesson, damn it. Like, go ahead. So yeah, that's the thing is like if it's a lesson to be learned, you're only gonna learn it once. If you're gonna touch a hot pan, you're only gonna touch it once. Promise you, you'll never do that again.
Yeah.
But like with them, we do that, and then we let them fail, right? Like if you don't do your chores, and then we want to go do something fun, and usually when we go places, if everything's done, hey, can I get a soda? Go ahead. What can I get from this menu? We're at a restaurant. Like, we didn't come here to not eat what we wanted. Get what you want, and you know stuff like that. But then if they don't earn that, and it's like, you know what, you didn't do that. You have a $10 budget, or you can't get a drink. Just water today, boys. You guys really did not like get your stuff done today. We do that to them, and then afterwards we come alongside them and be like, hey, you're really kind of falling behind in your chores. What's going on? Are you mentally okay, or something going on at school? Like, we want to make sure we're not just chastising them. We're coming alongside them. Like, we're their support group right now, because I guess in a sense we're treating them like adults before they become adults.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to treat them like babies, because they're not going to be babies forever. One day these are going to be grown men, and so we have to practice talking to them like that. And
that's so good.
we're not snatching things away from them. We're just, and we're not telling them, if you don't do this, you won't get this. We're just like, did you get your chores done? Yes. And then we kind of let it be. We really don't nag them and remind them, but then they lose out. So then they're like, oh, I lost out because of that, And then when we come alongside them, they're children too. So we give them breaks. We're like, in the real world, like, if I mess up a job, I don't get that same thing. Oh, you messed up? Well, just come back tomorrow and we'll figure it out.
I think that's such a great point. I think we've done a really good job. I think we could always do better. But I think that we have done a great job with that. We've never done the baby talk thing. I baby talk my French bulldog more than I ever have our kids. I have a problem with him.
Can we hear an example? I'm just kidding.
What?
Let's hear how you baby talk.
Baby. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding.
No, that's really what she does.
If you're in my household, you'll hear it. But we have not done that with the kids at all. And I think so many times with teenagers, with kids, they can do so much more than we give them credit for. And I mean, I'm proof of that. I moved out, had a child super young, like had zero help, and was able to totally do that and build a successful life. And our daughter's an example of that. She's 20 years old. She's bought her own car. She's paid for her own school. And we've gotten so much slack for that. Like, people have been so opinionated in our circle. Oh my gosh, you make your daughter pay for her college.
We have failed it sometimes. So like, I think what we're talking about makes us sound so perfect, but like, we have said things like, you've said things to her, whereas like, I did all these things when I was 15. Then you get to apologize for that.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying we're perfect. For sure.
No, but I just want to make sure like our audience knows. Like,
I think that that's fair. I think that is something that we've done well, though, is we really allow them to kind of build their path, even with school for her. Like, I told her how many times I'm like, do not, I didn't say do not. I wanted to say do not. I would ask her questions. I think that's another way to build minded children and not entitled children, or kids that are like really shut down and feel like they have no voice, is asking them questions. Mm-hmm. And when she was trying to choose what she was going to do and where she was going to go to college, we're not paying for college. So was I ecstatic when she decided to go to the medical industry? No, I was like, you're going to do what? That's a terrible industry. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's a good industry. As an entrepreneur, I was floored that she was going to go into a large construct and corporation like that. And I have a lot of pain with the medical industry. So I was surprised. So it took me a second. I never said a single thing to her, but I wanted to. But I was there to support the choices she made. And then she was like, I'm going to do the traditional college thing. I'm going to live on campus. I'm like, you do know you can save like $1 million if you stay at home. And she was dead set on
which is good for her, because she ended up because she had to work so hard to get, if she wanted to go to school, she had to figure out how to get funded.
Yeah.
She figured out how to fund it, and then she had to pay $7,000, basically $14,000 for a year.
Yeah.
You could save that if you just save home.
Nope.
And she's like, nope, this is what I want to do. So, okay, this is a opportunity for her to take ownership on her adult choices.
Yeah. And then,
and it's been working out good for her. Like, has it been easy for her? Probably not. Like,
no, but
she's had some struggles.
She said yesterday when we were getting her nails done, she said how grateful she is for having the opportunity. And we've told the kids we'll give them X amount of money for a car, but we're not just going to buy them a car. It worked out for her because I was getting a new car when she was getting a car, and that was like about this equivalent amount. And then she wrecked it, and then she had to like do that on her own. And then she's bought her own car, and we have it, she really, when she bought that car, she really wanted us to co-sign, and we did not budge. And I was so grateful for you, because I definitely would have caved. I would have, there's no way I wouldn't have caved, and you held strong. And I think that's one thing that is really important. And we have done that well in seasons. We have not done that well in other seasons or other areas, is really understanding your spouse's gifts in parenting, and then your spouse's weakness, your weakness, and both of your gifts, and then allowing yourselves to play to the strengths of the other person and support each other from a place of your weaknesses, because typically it's the opposite, right? Like, your weaknesses might be my strengths, and my strengths might be your weaknesses. So if we actually use each other and allow each other to sharpen us, I think that can be that's been really beneficial, because you're so much better in certain situations of holding the line, and vice versa, right? Yeah. I'm so grateful for your leadership, but for so many years, especially with our oldest, especially with the girl, I'm like, you're mean, like, blah, blah, blah. And then fast forward, there's all these girls dressing like freaking hoochies, and you have held that line and like created, and she's in college. She definitely dresses a little bit more risque than like we would like, but she's way better than she could be. And I think that she has a moral compass that is a lot stronger than if I just was there to like, you're the one in dance. You're like, absolutely not. She's not getting on stage in that. And I'd be like, it's dance. I was raised like this. And you're like, is that what you want? And you'd ask better questions. And I'd be like, oh shit, you're right. And
I think the importance with that is to, like, when there's those disagreements, is we give the illusion that we're on the same page all the time.
Yeah, that's good.
Because around our kids, they can't see that they can pull sides, because they'll try to do that with you. They'll try to come to mom, hey, can I do this? And you're like, no. And then they'll just go to dad. And
then they don't take ownership. That is such a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. That is one of the biggest things, is being a unified couple and not allowing them to like play you. It has been so beneficial in creating ownership in our kids, because then they don't have to take responsibility, right? If they're playing us, then they don't actually have to take responsibility. They're like, oh, dad said this, mom said this. And then in the background, we're arguing or fighting because of that. And I did that a few times you're like, you're not even going to ask me. And I was like, oh, shoot, you're right. Like, I didn't ask. Like, we were not unified on this front. And that has been something that, since we've been more unified and not allowed the kids to see that we're like, even if I don't disagree with you, I'm not going to say it. Or even if I do disagree with you, I'm not going to say that in front of the kids. And that has helped us so much. That's such a great point. I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation too.
Yeah, maybe that's our next topic. Being unified.
Yeah, that's a big one. That could be a couple episodes long, because you could get really into a lot of things.
Yeah, it's hard to do, especially in the middle of an argument with your children and you don't agree with your spouse. But I think we've gotten so much better about that.
Yeah, that'll be the art of arguing, episode 9, maybe.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great place to end. So thank you guys for tuning in to Never a Dull Moment.
Yeah, so we'll be here every Tuesday. If you'd like to grow with us, go ahead and smash that like button. The best way to support us is to just share this video or audio with a friend. and just keep it sharp with us. Just keep keeping it sharp with us.
Awesome. Well, have a great week and keep it sharp.